more information right now is emerging about the 20-year-old man that nearly assassinated former President Donald Trump. But investigators are still digging into what led him to open fire and what he planned to do with the bomb-making materials and explosive devices that were reportedly found in his home and car. Martha MacCallum is joining us now, anchor and executive editor of The Story. All eyes are now focused on this person, what they knew about him. We're going to be learning more about that in just a moment, Martha. And the FBI says they still don't have a motive. But please do jump into our coverage here, as you had some fascinating interviews in the last couple hours.
Well, as have all of you. We were looking forward to this week, coming to the convention site here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, but none of us thought that we were going to have the backdrop of this extraordinary story, extraordinary in an awful way, that unfolded yesterday afternoon. So, there's a lot of excitement around here, but there's so much focus on this investigation. And it does seem, I was, listening to what that young man was saying who knew him. And, here's that video that just every time we see it, it kind of goes right through you, and you hear those gunshots. You just can't believe what you're witnessing. But so far, his profile seems to shape up to be not dissimilar to other shooters that we've seen in the past. Someone who was bullied, as you just heard from that young man, a loner, all of those things. But the investigation that's ongoing right now is going to uncover whether or not he had any links to anyone else, whether or not this was truly a lone gunman effort on his part. And that's a huge part of this story. But it almost feels like the bigger part of the investigation at this point, or equally big, is what happened, what the response was from law enforcement. And I know you were just talking about the reports that this police officer went up a ladder, confronted the gunman, went back down the ladder. So what happened between that moment and when those shots were fired is, really the thick of what they have to dig into now. It is just so shocking that something like this could happen 43 years after Ronald Reagan's assassination attempt, to see this unfold again by someone who found the proximity and was able to fire off a shot, given all of the security that we all we're confident in, raises so many questions, John and Sandra.
So, Martha, a little while ago, while you were doing your program, Joe Biden came out in the Roosevelt Room and talked about the need for unity in the wake of this. Listen to what he said.
There is no place in America for this kind of violence, or any violence for that matter. An assassination attempt is contrary to everything we stand for as a nation, everything. It's not who we are as a nation. It's not America. And we cannot allow this to happen. Unity is the most elusive goal of all, but nothing is important than that right now.
This from a president, Martha, who at every turn denounced Donald Trump as a MAGA extremist and said he was an existential threat to democracy. And now he says it's all about unity?
Well, it's interesting, John, because when he made the statement last night, he said, that's why I wanted to unify the country, talking about his last election. And I think that in the midst of COVID, a lot of voters did feel that this was going to be sort of a calmer environment, and that his kind of grandfatherly demeanor was going to bring some sense of unity. But that isn't what we saw. We saw him very much lean into the progressives in his party and not shy away from the language around the former president being destructive to democracy. It's interesting saying these words and watching him pump his fist in the air as he gets pushed into that limousine. It's just been an unbelievable, not even 24 hours yet, John. And so you've got this interesting dynamic. You're in the middle of a presidential election. So and Joe Biden, the president, has been put in a difficult spot by this situation that has unfolded yesterday. Does it dig into his ability to talk about the former president as a threat to democracy? And if he does that, how does he nuance that? How does he make that okay in light of what we just saw yesterday? So that campaign has a lot of rethinking to do about how they're going to approach this, and an opportunity, I think, for both sides, for President Biden and President Trump, in terms of how they talk about these things in front of the country in a way that is going to inspire people to vote for them.
Yeah, and the former president followed up the president's remarks earlier with a two-words Truth Social post, Unite America. Martha, I know that your coverage will continue there from Milwaukee throughout the day and on in tomorrow. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thanks,
Great
Martha.
to
See
be
you
with
soon.
you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.